thefrogbitblog.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Frog-Bit-Blog podcast. On this week's episode we look at wolves and drugs. Not wolves on drugs. I think wolves didn't do drugs when we looked at drugs last week. I don't think wolves got involved in the drugs. But I'm going to look at wolves, I'm going to look at drugs, and I'm going to look at fox hunting, and I'm going to look at all sorts of little things today. So listen on.
thefrogbitblog.
First of all, corrections and apologies. I've had a few complaints about calling Boris Johnson Bendy Banana Bastard Boris. After he'd called Mayor Sadiq Khan, he'd called him a pompous poppinjay. And in return, I called him Bendy Bananas Bastard Boris. Because remember, I called him that because it was he who made up the lie about the EU banning our bendy bananas. Bananas. Yes, it was him who made up blatant lies constantly when he worked for the Times until he got sacked for lying. I'm not quite sure how that one worked, but there you go. Anyway, there was a complaint. There was a complaint from the British Alliteration Society who complained that I wasted a good alliteration on such a useless, lying little shit. They were their exact words. Sorry, British Alliteration Society. So instead, I got in touch with the British Acronym Society, and they said I could use the acronym UCLT instead with their permission. So that's Boris Johnson, UCLT, which stands for Upper Class Lying Twat, or Upper Class Lying Tosser, or Upper Class Lying Torag. It's your choice. You get to choose, folks. It's your choice. Anyway, I went back and told the British Alliteration Society, and they weren't too keen on the involvement of the Acronym Society. They said arsehole acronyms aren't okay. So then I went and rang the British Acronym Society, and they said, tell the lows alliteration bastards to STFU. And the acronym then came back with, we'll fight tonight to prove who's right. At which point I just thought, OMG, what? WTF? Then I lolled.
thefrogbitblog.
Yep, again, I've had complaints. A few people are upset that I mocked the death of another human being. Remember the story was that guide who died while leading a hunting party trying to shoot an elephant, and the elephant killed him. And I laughed. Honestly, I laughed. And people said he was still a human being. Death should not be mocked. So fair enough. Again, I've had to take a long, hard look at myself and, fuck him. As the late Bill Hicks said, we lost the moron, we lost the moron. Now, I've also been told that I must apologise to the Scots. Remember last week we were looking at Scottish power and how on Christmas Day they actually had more wind power than they actually needed to power the whole country. And I mentioned I was surprised because it fell on, power consumption fell on, they didn't need it all. And I just suggested, maybe it's because they were all in the pub. Well, I've had the Scottish Tourist Board on to me, and they said, dear Mr. Frogbit, please stop using these lazy racial stereotypes about the Scottish nation. They are unwarranted and unhelpful, and if you didn't stop, we'll come and pour iron brew all over your daft show. Anyway, Hootsman, I'm really sorry. You were on Christmas Day, you were all probably out playing your bagpipes in the Highlands, dressed in a kilt with some haggis in your sporran. Okay, the new. There, is that good enough for you?
thefrogbitblog.
And I've been told that I also must apologise to Jeremy Hunt because I found out he's actually a blood relative of the fascist Oswald Mosley. And I did say, look, there's no way that there's absolutely any connection whatsoever making him a dickhead, okay? I did say there's absolutely no connection whatsoever, no chance that it's hereditary. Well, I take that back, actually. It's probably hereditary. And by the way, Jeremy Hunt, you spelt your surname wrong. Right, and last apology for the day, I must apologise to the animal kingdom, apparently. People have complained. I'm meant to be pro-animal. And I on last week's article on the high of the tiger. The high of the tiger! Huh, yeah! Anyway, a spokesperson from the Animal Alliance and Animal Liberation Front didn't like the ideas that I was painting all the animals out to be drunken, drug-taking reprobates. So I am sorry on that one, animals. And what they say is, "Dear Mr. Frogbit, again we see you are relying on lazy stereotypes for cheap laughs. The idea is that us animals are all drug-taking crazed hippies is completely untrue. It's only around 50% of us do so. Actually, we blame the skunks. They're either as drunk as a skunk or they're busy getting marijuana named after them." Okay, animals, sorry, apology.
The thefrogbitblog.
Also in the news, a master of a fox hunt has been convicted and awaits sentencing for taking part in cruel badger baiting. The League Against Cruel Sports has called for him to resign and close down the hunt. The master of the Dwinrid hunt in North Wales faces prison for having been convicted of badger baiting and 6 further animal welfare offences. David Thomas, 51, was convicted in Llandudno Magistrates Court of causing unnecessary suffering to a badger by making it fight with dogs at the hunt's kennels. The League Against Cruel Sports is now calling for him to step down as master of the hunt and for the Dwinrid hunt to be disbanded and the hounds relocated elsewhere. Too fucking right. Surprise, surprise, fox hunters are also into badger baiting too. Ah, yes, what a fucking surprise. When are we going to treat these people, and that includes the fox hunters and the shooters, when are we going to treat them as the mentally ill people that they are? I'm actually going to talk more depth about this another episode, but sorry, I know we have to be tolerant in this society, but lock them all up, the evil bastards. And in good news, on a better note, a Conservative MP has broken his back in a riding accident. Owen Paterson, MP for North Shropshire, was out riding on Saturday when he fell from his horse, breaking 3 vertebrae. Shame it wasn't his fucking neck. He's in hospital in Gobowen, Shropshire, and has been told he needs total bed rest. Mr. Patterson says he feels lucky to be alive and is still able to work while being treated. Now, it doesn't mention on the BBC that it was actually fox hunting. Why not?
Wow.
Why doesn't it mention that? Why does it censor the fact that he was out fox hunting? He's a pro-hunting MP. He called for the hunting ban to be revealed. And you might not be able to see this, but I'm actually playing the world's smallest violin. Try it again next time, Owen, and hopefully this time break your fucking neck.
The thefrogbitblog.
Oh, and of course, as that he wanted the hunting ban to be repealed, not revealed. That would be daft, wouldn't it? It'd be revealed. Repealed. He wanted the hunting ban to be repealed. I'm still playing my violin, the world's tiniest violin. Owen. So what's old Trumpy Pumpy been up to recently? Yeah, news has come out that he had an affair with a prostitute while his wife had just given birth to their son. According to the In Touch weekly interview with adult actress Stormy Daniels, Trump was obsessed with sharks and terrified of them. He reportedly told her, "I donate to all these charities. I would never donate to any charity that helps sharks. I hope all the sharks die." He wants all the sharks to die. What a weirdo. Here's an idea. Maybe we could arrange a Trump family versus shark matchup. Bring his elephant-killing sons along. They like fighting wild animals, don't they? All in a big pool, 3 sharks, 3 Trumps, okay? Let's see how fucking good hunters they are then, eh? Let's see how alpha male Donald is then, eh? And what we could do pay-per-view. 3 Trumps versus 3 sharks in a pool, and with all the money we could raise, we could stop world hunger or something. It's a win-win for everybody. Oh, stop picking on Donald. He's such an easy target. Yeah, just like those elephants his sons kill. They're easy targets, aren't they, wankers? Well, tell you what, I wish Donald was actually an easy target for somebody. Rant over.
The thefrogbitblog.
It's Farmers Weekly. Welcome Welcome to Farmers Weekly, our regular look at farming issues of the day. But first, a horrific tale of abuse of one of our hard-working British farmers who was shouted at by angry animal activists while driving his pigs through the gates of the abattoir. Hello, wonderful, caring farmer.
Hello.
Would you like to tell the listeners about your horrendous ordeal at the hands of these anarchist extremists?
Well, all the nasty vegans, they all shouted at me.
Oh dear. What were they shouting?
They called me a murderer.
Oh, that's ghastly. Are you okay?
Well, just about. They were really horrid.
It sounds absolutely traumatic. Have you been in touch with the government for some compensation?
Yes, they said they were going to divert the money from the Grenfell Tower relief funds.
Oh, that's good. You need it more than they do, don't you?
Yes, and I just want to say I love my little animals. I'd never do anything to hurt them, other than have them painfully killed for money, obviously.
Thank you very much, nice farmer man.
Thank you.
And that's all from this week's show. Next week, we look at how you can empty your slurry into local rivers without getting caught. Bye-bye.
Now, I got this story from the Northwest Hunt Saboteurs blog page, so shout out to them. Rapist and Cheshire Hunt supporter fails to get a 9-year prison sentence cut. A farmer told his fleeing victim she was not going anywhere before raping her over a table, top judges have heard. Now, this is his previous criminal records. 1987, jailed after driving his cattle truck at a car containing his wife and a man who he was associating with. 1993, he was found guilty of violent disorder. A group of men attacked a minibus containing Hunt saboteurs, smashed up the bus, one sab was punched, and he beat up a woman, Suzanne McGowan, who was running away for help. Big man. 1998, jail for 15 months for a cruel beating of a League Against Cruel Sports monitor in a meeting of the Cheshire Hounds. The man was chased across a field, sprayed with liquid, hit over the head with a bottle and repeated kicked. Kirkham told the man, "We've got you now, you're dead." Okay, and he got 15 months for that. 2003, charged with assaulting police officers. 2003 again, fined £17,000 for persistently ignoring disease control regulations. 2011, fined £600 for breaching TB restrictions. 2013, 4-month custodial sentence after pleading guilty to 8 offences of breaching TB restrictions. And he wanted leniency for rape because he said it was his first conviction of this kind. What do you think, listeners? He hasn't had his sentence reduced. What is it with these people? Is it just the overprivileged upbringing that makes them feel like they can do what they want? It's real sociopathic behaviour, isn't it? It's like if you're into killing animals, it's not that far a step, I don't think, that you can behave like that towards people. 9 years he got with that long string of sentences, and you compare that to 10 years that Ronnie Lee got. Ronnie Lee, if you don't know the story, you probably do. Animal rights protester locked away for 10 years for conspiracy. No one was hurt, property was damaged, and even though he wasn't responsible for the actions of other people, because people undertook individual actions under the ALF banner, and Ronnie Lee was painted out as some sort of commander general of an army and got 10 years. And this twat with a big long line of a conviction got 9 years for rape. Doesn't it sort of show some weird priorities of the judges and the judiciary and the police in this country?
The thefrogbitblog.
Stalked in the forest, too close to hide, I'll be upon you by the moonlight side. I'm touched with the ground, I'm on the hunt down, I'm after you. Smell like I sound, I'm lost in a crowd, and I'm hungry like the wolf. And so go the lyrics to Duran Duran's shit 80s hit, Hungry Like the Wolf. It all sounds a bit Harvey Weinstein to me, that, doesn't it? Anyway, why am I on about Hungry Like the Wolf? Well, wolves have made it as far as Belgium for the first time in a century. Yep, the first recorded wolf on Belgian soil for at least 100 years has made her bloody mark. It's called Naya. She's called Naya, and she's arrived in Belgium, and it marks the return of the predator to every mainland country in Europe, turning back decades of persecution, although obviously not every community welcomes it. The fucking farmers are complaining, as usual. We haven't got them here, obviously, because of Channel Tunnel. We don't want them bloody wolves here, do we? No, they ain't got the blue passports, have they? Anyway, they had this Naya had a tag on her, a collar, and she walked hundreds of miles through Europe to get to Belgium. Hey, bloody wolves, foreign wolves coming over here, stealing our sheep. Well, obviously, farmers aren't going to be happy, but then again, they're never fucking happy, are they, about anything unless they're killing it or throwing chemicals over it. Well, why not claim a subsidy for it then? You get subsidised for everything else, you fuckers. No, wolves can't go around killing sheep, can they? They can't go around killing sheep. We want to kill the sheep. It's not fair. There are sheep to kill. And funnily enough, the more sheep subsidies there seems to be, the more wolf killing suddenly appears. Yeah, strange that, isn't it? The number of wolf killings rise exponentially as the amount of subsidies go up. No, it definitely wasn't a dog. Yep, it was definitely a wolf. Definitely a wolf. Ka-ching. So there have been issues all over Europe with protests and counter-protests. Same people, aren't we, that expect Africa to hang on to all their deadly wild animals that eat a few people. But us Europeans, no, we can't have indigenous wild animals back in Europe. Won't somebody think of the sheep? Well, here's a thought. How about we get rid of all the fucking sheep and keep the wolves, eh? Why not? I remember reading an article where a farmer admitted in Wales they only have them for the subsidies and spend their time sitting in cafes laughing at the rest of us, eh? Well, you can't grow any other food on the uplands, so sheep are the only things they're good for, aren't they? Well, you could try planting some fucking trees to stop flooding and combat global warming. You know what I mean? If we're going to subsidise these upland farmers, well, I'd rather give them the money to do something good rather than a bit of sheep murder. Yeah? How about getting rid of the sheep farmers? Oh no, we can't lose jobs. Funny that, isn't it? We can't lose farmers' jobs, can we? Because I don't remember many sheep farmers on the miners' picket lines in the 80s or on the firemen' picket lines in the 90s or at the poll tax riots. Oh no, actually, now I do. Yeah, there was loads of them there. Whenever fellows workers' jobs are being threatened, you're always going to find comrade sheep farmer sticking up for the rights of fellow workers, aren't you? Always on the front line, twatting the police. Them farmers taught the anarchists a thing or two, they did. They were on the stops at City March in the 80s and they were piling up concrete and throwing it at the police and everything, I can tell you. Anyway, seriously though, I know they're good farmers out there, so I'm not tarring you all with the same brush. I'm just making the point, wouldn't it be great to have wolves back in this country? Look, I ended up arguing about 3 different things at once there, wasn't I? I was arguing about getting rid of the sheep and putting trees on uplands and also on about the wolves. But there is an issue in Europe, and this, as the wolves spread across Europe, is mainly Northern Europe. Like Norway wants to kill them all. Germany, they teach kids in school about them, and there's 80% of people are fine with wolves in Germany. There's a very high percentage of people that agree with them, and they don't seem to have a problem in Southern Europe where they've always had wool packs. And here was one letter I read in The Guardian the other day from somebody. I live in a rural mountain area of Galicia, northwest Spain, around where we have 3 known packs. I don't know what accent I'm doing here, and I can't think of the Spanish one. They do sometimes kill sheep and cattle, and farmers are compensated. But most protect their herds with dogs and bring them inside at night when it's cold. See, there's an answer. The wolves do move down into more populated areas in harder weather, but they are nervous of humans. We have seen them walk up our lane, but they disappear at the first scent of us or our dogs. The risk from wolves is less than from some occasional erratic speeding car drivers on our country roads. And they keep the far more dangerous wild boar in population in check too. So in the place where they're common, they have this quite laid back, great response. But in the northern Europe, everybody's, the wolves, the wolves, the wolves. And I can't remember what point I was sort of making because I went on a bit of a farmy rant.
The thefrogbitblog.
And the thing about them is I was watching a programme and reading an article from Yellowstone Park, and they do wonders for the ecology and the environments up there because they keep the elk moving. They keep the elk moving so the elk can't eat as many. I think it's sort of like willow and aspen. They can't eat all the shoots, and so they willow and aspen grow into proper trees because the elk have to keep moving because they're being chased by wolves everywhere. Yeah, and once the willow and aspen grow a bit, then the beavers move in and eat chew down the willow and aspen and make dams, and the dams stop flooding, and the dams create a whole new environment, and birds and all sorts of extra wildlife are attracted. So by having the wolves, they've especially in Yellowstone Park, they think the ecology has improved tenfold. Now imagine in this country there is a case, and it's why the same case for introducing the lynx in Scotland, because the red deer taking over and they sort of eat too many of the little saplings and stuff, and having an apex predator like the wolf would be great for the ecology. So why don't we just bring a few and stick them in Scotland? And, you know, at the very least, rich upper class people, at least you'll have something else to fucking shoot, won't you? If you've listened to the show before, you've probably noticed I talk about all that universe and consciousness and all that hippie, sciencey hippie stuff. I don't know why people associate it with hippies really, because it's science anyway. Well, and there's a plausible theory that states there may be, in fact, an infinite number of universes, yeah? And if this is the case, I mean, there's a chance that it could happen, yeah? There's also a chance that we might be living in a big hologram, but there's a chance that this could happen. Then everything that can happen will happen, so there will be more or less identical Earths out there, only with minor different details, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Millions and an infinite number of Earths with similar things happening, so there's similar versions of you. And if you think about it, if you take this to logical conclusion, in these parallel universes, there's going to be lots of weird things happening. Like, for example, someone tonight will be watching a rerun of an old 50s comedy called Some Don't Like It Hot. In a parallel universe, there's someone called Beyonce married to a bloke called JX. And someone else will be listening to a Beatles song that goes, Raspberry Fields for the next half hour. Or, She Hates You, yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, in another one, there'll be someone singing, She Hates You, no, no, no. And someone else will be singing, The ear of the tiger, the nose of the tiger. It's incredible, isn't it? If you can think of any other good ones, listeners, because I know I'm sort of joking and I've used jokey ones there, but these will, if there's an infinite number of universes, these will actually be in existence. So if you can think of any good songs, books, films, whatever, email at the contact form of the Frogbit blog and I will read them out. In fact, you can choose what crap accent I try to do. Films, books, songs, song lyrics, that kind of thing. Okay?
The thefrogbitblog.
Like, remember last week, if you stayed awake, I did some stuff about animals on drugs, and I also touched on the current drug laws across the globe. Well, when I was doing some research about animals on drugs, I also came across stuff on humans, so I'm going to talk a bit more about human attitudes to drugs. Now, remember, I'm not saying drugs are good, and certainly not encouraging anyone to take them. You're adults and you make your own choices, but this is interesting. Imagine if 20 years ago, we were going to legalize and popularize a drug that has a psychoactive on the brain, a drug that makes users feel high but then gets them addicted, so they have to keep coming back for more. A drug that now leads to 2 million problem drug users in this country. One that leads to poverty, suicide, breakup of families, but it's still advertised hundreds of times a day on TV. Of course, I'm talking about gambling. Bet 365, nah. Now, this isn't a puritanical rant, okay? If people want to gamble, they can gamble. But can you imagine if, say, it was cannabis that was having these effects on society? We have these fixed odds betting terminals now that people throw thousands of pounds into in one go, and they're highly addictive, intentionally. Yeah, intentionally highly addictive. We have kiddies games on Facebook that mimic gambling. We are a nation of problem gamblers now. But you know what? These gambling companies spend lots of money supporting political parties. And guess what? Yeah, this drug is fine. Now, it's odd, isn't it, about what drugs are acceptable and what are, because they all really have the same effect on the brain. Some are encouraged and some you're sent to jail for. Shopping's another one. Shopping is addictive. It has the same psychoactive effect on the brain. People get into huge financial difficulties, but it's fine, isn't it? But shopping doesn't harm anyone, else there are no victims to shopping. Well, look at the state of the ocean and the damage done to the environment by relentless consumerism, and I would beg to differ. Now, I remember about 20 years ago when ecstasy was all the rage and there were all these campaigns about the horrors of ecstasy. Won't somebody think of the children? These evil drugs are killing our children. And I remember reading some statistics at the time. Despite the fact that millions of ecstasy tablets were being consumed every weekend, deaths were pretty rare. You were something like 10 or 20 times more likely to die on a skiing holiday or horse riding than you were by taking ecstasy. So imagine this. Darling, what should we do with the kids this summer holiday? Skiing in Switzerland? Horse riding in Spain? Or should we just stay here and get off our tits on ecstasy and have a week of bonding and hugs?
Oh, darling. Well, I do like the sound of the family bonding and hugs. Let's try the ecstasy this year. It's far safer for the kids. And after all, their well-being is of our utmost concern.
Yep, so you've got that scenario. Several million to one chance, but a small one of some kid dies. The parents would be locked up. Lock 'em up. Shameful, burn 'em. Drug dealers are dealers in death. It's awful. And parents are irresponsible doing that to their kids. But imagine this scenario.
I know, darling. Even though we are much more likely to risk our children's lives, let's take them skiing.
Whee, this is fun. Thanks, Mum and Dad. I love skiing.
Oh no! Jeremy's hit a tree and he's dead. Oh, the poor, poor parents. How awful for them.
So there you have it. In one instance, you've got all this sympathy and outpouring. Oh, terrible parents. What a shame. Their kids have died in the skiing holiday. Sympathy. You don't have anyone outside the travel agents going, we must stop these dealers in death. We must stop them. It's terrible. But, you know, the parents are taking a risk and taking the kids on holidays. But if you stayed at home and gave your kids ecstasy, sat round, all held hands, hugged and had a great time, you'd be locked in prison and you'd be shamed and you'd have the rest of your kids taken off you, but you're still just taking a risk with your kids' lives and you're taking less of a risk. Look, I know it's not the most convincing argument I ever put across, and I'm not saying as a parent, start giving your kids ecstasy. I'm just looking at the statistics, okay? Statistics.
The thefrogbitblog.
I mean, so how fucked up is that? And there's more. When I was doing my research on drugs, I found some interesting stuff about drugs that the ancients took. They were up to all sorts, and I'm going to talk some more about these in following weeks, because I'm like that, you know, when I get on a rant, I get like that. But this one stood out a mile. Frankincense and myrrh are hallucinogenic when used in a combined space. The mixture of frankincense and myrrh were hallucinogenic. Now, where have you heard frankincense and myrrh used before?
December the 24th, 0 BC.
So you're on the way to see this Jesus fella. What have you got for him?
I've got gold for the king.
Oh, gold, that's nice. What have you got for him, Balthazar?
I have the gift of myrrh.
Shit, really? I got him frankincense. You know what they say, if you mix frankincense and myrrh...
Frankincense and myrrh together make myrrh.
Better hope it's a ventilated space. Anyway, he's a king. It'll be a huge kettle or something, won't it?
Yeah, I reckon.
Is this it? It's a fucking stable.
He can't be the son of God. It's cold! Shut the door! Were you born in a barn?
Well, yes, ma'am. Technically, I was.
Baby Jesus, shut up. You're too young to talk.
Sorry, ma'am.
We brought you gifts from afar. Gold, frankincense and myrrh.
But I thought you weren't meant to have frankincense and myrrh in a confined space.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mother, I feel fucking great. I truly am the Son of God.
And that's exactly how it happened, folks. The rest, as they say, is history. Now Jesus lives on in Weird Americans.
I think I've insulted enough people for 1 week, so I'm going to stop there. I hope you've enjoyed the show. You can go to the thefrogbitblog.com website and have a look on the podcast page, and you can find out how to subscribe if you want to. I've not put any copyrighted material of anyone else in this episode, so I'm actually going to put this on YouTube if you like to watch nothing really other than the title of the podcast. I'm going to put this one on YouTube as well. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a good couple of weeks. Keep on doing good things. Lots of everything really. Bye.
The Frog Bit Blog.